here. Well, I've been a fan of our first guest for many years. He's an entertainment expert who's been covering the Oscars for years. The great Dave Karger got his start writing for Entertainment Weekly, which is now Entertainment Monthly, but still called Entertainment Weekly. You may have seen him on the Today Show or as the incredible host of Turner Classic Movies. Last year, he published his first book called 50 Oscar Nights, and it includes interviews with 50 Academy Award winners from the past 60 years. Audience, give it up for Dave Karger, everybody. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Jason, great to see you.
Doing well, my friend. First, let me ask you about the news of the day. It's hard to say excited for this booking with you in conjunction with Gene Hackman, but I'm glad, I should say, I appreciate your presence today on a day like this. When you think of Gene and his contributions to movies, Dave, what bubbles up for you?
Just his versatility, all the different things that he could do, from the French Connection to Get Shorty. I mean, he was just someone who could do it all, and someone who was a favorite of so many other actors. So I think the outpouring of support and sadness that we're seeing just in the last couple of hours is really meaningful.
And don't you think it's such a cliche, I've said it a few times today, they just don't make them like this anymore, do they, Dave?
They don't, and he was someone that we didn't see a lot of for the last 20 years, and we understood that he was living a quiet life in New Mexico, and it was just so sad to wake up and read that news this morning.
Awful. What was the catalyst for this book, my friend? What made you, because it's such a great look. There's been countless books about the Oscars. But this is such a great premise. Where did this come from?
Thank you. Well, when the opportunity presented itself for me to write a book, I knew it had to be about the Oscars for all the reasons that you mentioned when you were introducing me, which was so nice, by the way. But I knew that I wanted to do a book about the Oscars that approached the topic from a more personal angle. So I just came up with this idea of interviewing 50 Oscar winners, from Jane Fonda and Sally Field and Julia Roberts, Elton John, John Legend, and hear the stories from them about what it's actually like to go through the experience, to make the film that goes on to win them an Oscar, and then actually what the day was like, from the moment they woke up to the moment they went to bed, how they decided what they would do, who they would go with, what they would wear in some cases, what they would say, how they celebrated, what it means to them all these years later, and where they keep their Oscar now. So I got a lot of fascinating stories that I had certainly never heard before.
Dave, were you surprised to discover in the book and in your research, us mere mortals, we romanticize that day. You know, we see it edited and put together with the lights and the graphics and the announcer, but it's not always sunshine and lollipops and gold for these people on that day, is it?
You're exactly right. There are some people that I interviewed for the book for whom the day was the Cinderella moment, Julia Roberts or Octavia Spencer or John Legend. But there are just as many people, if not more, for whom the Oscar win and the experience carries with it very complex emotions. Marlee Matlin, Mira Sorvino, Barry Jenkins, the director of Moonlight. So there were a lot of people who told me stories about rough patches that they were going through in their lives, even though they were going through such a pinnacle moment in their professional lives.
Dave, you've been, as I said, I've been a fan for years. You and I are about the same age, and you've talked to everyone. So within my compliment, I want to ask, it's still probably difficult to nail down Meryl Streep. So how did you get that booking, my friend?
Oh, I had to wait. I mean, I extended to Meryl Streep. I thought, if I'm writing a book that has the word Oscar in the title, how can I release this book without Meryl Streep in it, the most nominated person ever? So I did reach out to her people. I heard pretty quickly that she was interested and willing to do it, but I had to wait because she's very busy. She's Meryl Streep. And I will tell you, she was worth the wait. For everyone in the book, there's more than one Oscar, and let them pick which Oscar they wanted to talk about. So she chose Sophie's Choice, which I think is the best performance ever by any actor or actress in the history of film. And she told me some great stories, one of which I could not repeat on morning television. Crazy stuff happened to her when she won that Oscar.
Don't you think, Dave, it's been my experience over the years, and that people ask me, the studio, oh, who's the best, who's the least? Isn't it always the esteemed ones like Meryl who the pros are sometimes the warmest and the nicest because they've been around the block and they know a thing. Do you find that too, Dave?
You know, there were some of the people who I interviewed for this book who were, as you're saying, the easiest and the most comfortable to talk to were the most famous. Sally Field.
Yes.
She was a joy to talk to. Jane Fonda, who just killed it at the SAG Awards with her.
Yeah.
She was good in the book. Yes, you're right. A lot of the times, the really accomplished ones, Emma Thompson, the same way, are the most fun to interview.
Absolutely. More with the great Dave Karger when we come back. Back in a moment, everybody.
Let's make it happen.
50 Oscar nights, get it? Wherever you get your books. I love a bookstore. R.I.P. B. Dalton. Welcome back, everybody. More now with entertainment journalist and author Dave Karger. Dave, really quick, the studio audience had a question as we wrap up talking about the book here, and I want to get your take on the Oscars. That Meryl Streep story you were referring to, though you can't tell it on daytime television, is it in the book?
Of course it is.
Of course it is! Dave isn't dumb. He knows how to sell a book. It's in the book. Buy the book. That's right. Okay, I have you here. Hello, it's the Oscars. Hello, it's this Sunday. Who you rooting for, my friend?
My favorite movie of the year is actually the one that I think is now going to win Best Picture, and that's Anora, which I know a lot of people haven't seen because it's kind of a smaller film that you had to go to a theater to see, but it's a fantastic movie that I just think has so much energy to it and a star-making performance by the lead actress who you're seeing right there, Mikey Madison, who I think is probably going to lose to Demi Moore for Best Actress, but just gives a phenomenal performance. But I think Anora, or maybe Conclave, will win Best Picture.
Well, on that note, do you think there will be any surprises? Because you know, Dave, there are years where it's very rat-a-tat-tat. Oh, of course Julia's going to win. Oh, of course Silence of the Lambs going to win. Of course, you know what I mean? Do you think this year we'll have any moments?
Well, I think the category that is the closest right now besides Best Picture is Best Actor. And Adrian Brody was sweeping the whole season for The Brutalist. But then you saw Timothée Chalamet win the Screen Actors Guild Award last week for A Complete Unknown. He would get my vote. I think he has a chance of winning the Oscar and would become the youngest Best Actor winner of all time. So that would be something I would love.
Well, we wouldn't mind it. Our show's based in Minneapolis. Lord knows we wouldn't mind that. A little Bob Dylan up in her. Yeah. Dave, we talked about the Bruce Vilanch book in our Hot Dish segment. I want to ask you, because you're a lover of the broadcast like I am, who's been your favorite host of all time, my friend, of our age? Who's been your favorite?
I'm a fan of when Jimmy Kimmel hosts. I think I didn't love it the most recent time he did it this past year, but historically, I love when he hosts. I loved it when Steve Martin and Alex hosted together. That was really great. And of course, Billy Crystal. I mean, who did it like him? You know, he just had such a glint in his eye and just a little bit of just bordering on naughty humor. He was always terrific.
Dave, my last question here. I always like a good origin story. What made you fall in love with movies, my friend?
Well, I fell in love with the Oscars almost before I fell in love with movies. I watched them when I was 11 years old, just happened upon the ceremony, didn't know what the movies were, but I was just so taken by the ceremony of it all and the celebration and quite frankly, the competition of it all too. And then it wasn't until when I was growing up in the 80s, it was all the John Hughes movies, 16 Candles. But then in college, I began to really study serious films, Citizen Kane and On the Waterfront and Buster Keaton and things like that. And that's when it all just opened up for me.
I always like to start or end an interview with a compliment. I meant what I said. Grew up around the same era. I've seen a lot of hosts come and go in entertainment journalism. You're just one of the best, and TCM could not have picked a better host. And I just appreciate your time today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you to your lovely audience, too. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Audience, be sure to find a copy of 50 Oscar Nights wherever you get your books. Friends, we're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.